Yo, let's rewind the clock back to the late 19th century in America. Picture this: gas lamps illuminating bustling city streets, the rhythmic clang of factory machinery echoing in the air, a nation on the cusp of transformation. This was the Gilded Age, a time of immense economic growth and technological advancement, where fortunes were built overnight, and the American dream seemed within reach. But beneath this glittering facade, a darker reality festered. The Gilded Age was a time of unprecedented change, a period of rapid industrialization and urbanization that reshaped the very fabric of American society. Factories sprang up across the nation, drawing millions from rural farmlands to the burgeoning cities in search of work and opportunity. This mass migration from rural to urban centers transformed the nation's landscape, giving rise to sprawling metropolises like New York, Chicago, and Pittsburgh. The gap between the rich and the poor widened into a chasm, creating a society sharply divided along economic lines. The dazzling progress of the Gilded Age came at a steep price, paid for by the sweat and toil of millions of working-class Americans. Men, women, and even children labored long hours in dangerous conditions, their lives consumed by the relentless demands of the factory floor. The working class faced a myriad of challenges: low wages, unsafe working conditions, lack of basic sanitation, and inadequate housing. Labor unions, still in their infancy, fought tooth and nail for basic rights and protections, often met with fierce resistance from powerful industrialists. The Gilded Age, a time when ambition knew no bounds and fortunes were built on a foundation of iron, oil, and steel. John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, Cornelius Vanderbilt. Names that echoed through the corridors of power, whispered in awe and fear. These men, with their unwavering ambition and ruthless business acumen, came to embody the spirit of the age. From oil fields to steel mills, from railroads to financial markets, their influence permeated every facet of American life. These were the titans, the giants upon whose shoulders a nation's prosperity was built, but their ascent to power was paved with both innovation and exploitation. John D. Rockefeller, a name synonymous with both unimaginable wealth and ruthless ambition. His rise to power is a tale of shrewd business tactics, relentless drive, and a touch of ruthlessness that would come to define the era. He established Standard Oil in 1870, and with it began a relentless quest to consolidate power, crush competition, and establish a monopoly over this vital resource. By the 1880s, Standard Oil controlled over 90% of the American oil industry, making Rockefeller one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in the world. His monopoly, while a testament to his business acumen, cast a long shadow over the nation, raising concerns about fair competition and the unchecked power of big business. While Rockefeller was building his oil empire, another titan was rising in the steel industry: Andrew Carnegie. From his humble beginnings as a Scottish immigrant working in a Pittsburgh cotton mill, Carnegie's story is a classic rags-to-riches tale. He invested heavily in new technologies like the Bessemer process, which allowed for the mass production of high-quality steel at a lower cost. Carnegie, like Rockefeller, understood the importance of vertical integration, controlling every aspect of the steel production process. His company, Carnegie Steel, became a behemoth, supplying the steel that built America's bridges, skyscrapers, and railroads. The railroads, arteries of a nation connecting vast distances, facilitating trade and fueling economic growth. And at the helm of this transportation revolution stood Cornelius Vanderbilt, a man whose ambition and business acumen were as boundless as the tracks his trains traversed. Vanderbilt acquired smaller railroad companies, often through hostile takeovers, and merged them into his growing empire. He invested heavily in infrastructure, upgrading tracks, building bridges, and standardizing gauge sizes to create a more efficient and interconnected rail network. Vanderbilt's railroads transformed the American landscape, facilitating the growth of cities, connecting markets, and opening up the West to settlement. These titans of industry, these architects of America's industrial might, left an indelible mark on the nation's history. They built empires, amassed unimaginable wealth, and in doing so shaped the very fabric of American society. But their rise to power was not without its consequences. The immense wealth they accumulated came at a cost, often borne by the thousands of workers who toiled in their factories and mines. The Gilded Age, a tale of two Americas, a nation divided by a chasm of wealth and disparity. On one side, a gilded elite living in unimaginable luxury, their lives a whirlwind of opulent parties, extravagant mansions, and conspicuous consumption. On the other, a vast and growing working class, toiling long hours in dangerous conditions for meager wages, their lives a constant struggle for survival. The booming economy, while creating immense wealth, did little to improve the lives of the majority of Americans. The Gilded Age elite lived in a world of unparalleled opulence, their lives a testament to the excesses of the era. Their mansions, veritable palaces of marble and gilt, lined Fifth Avenue in New York City, each one more extravagant than the last. Parties were legendary, lavish affairs with no expense spared. Conspicuous consumption was the order of the day. It was a world of extravagance and excess, a gilded cage that insulated the elite from the harsh realities faced by so many Americans. While the Gilded Age elite reveled in their opulent world, the vast majority of Americans faced a far different reality. They were the working class, the men, women, and children who toiled in the factories, mines, and mills that fueled the nation's economic engine. Their lives were a world away from the champagne and caviar of the upper crust. Imagine working 12 to 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, in a dimly lit factory, the air thick with dust and the deafening roar of machinery constantly assaulting your ears. The promise of the American dream seemed like a cruel joke to those who toiled in these conditions, their lives a testament to the human cost of industrial progress. As the gap between the rich and the poor widened during the Gilded Age, a seed of discontent began to grow among the working class. Labor unions, still in their infancy, began to organize, demanding better wages, safer working conditions, and an end to child labor. Strikes and protests erupted across the nation as workers, often met with violent resistance from employers and government forces, fought for their right to a fair share of the wealth they helped create. The Pullman strike of 1894, which paralyzed the nation's railroad system, further highlighted the plight of workers and the willingness of industrialists to use their wealth and influence to crush dissent. The Gilded Age, with its stark contrasts of wealth and poverty, may seem like a distant chapter in American history, but its echoes can still be felt today. As we grapple with issues of income inequality, corporate power, and social justice, the lessons of this era serve as a stark reminder of the importance of ensuring that economic progress benefits all members of society, not just a select few. The images of lavish Gilded Age parties and opulent mansions, juxtaposed with the grim realities of tenement life and factory labor, should serve as a cautionary tale. They remind us of the dangers of unchecked greed, the corrosive effects of wealth inequality, and the importance of fighting for a more just and equitable society. The Gilded Age was a time of both great progress and profound social upheaval. It was an era that laid bare the contradictions of capitalism, the potential for both immense wealth creation and widespread exploitation. As we navigate the complexities of the 21st century, it's essential to remember the lessons of this era and strive to create a future where the pursuit of profit doesn't come at the expense of human dignity and social justice. In the Gilded Age, wealth whispered in the corridors of power, its influence seeping into every nook and cranny of government. The industrial titans, with their vast fortunes and insatiable ambition, sought not just economic dominance but political sway, recognizing that true power lay in shaping the very laws and policies that governed the nation. It was a time when the lines between business and politics blurred, when money talked and politicians listened. The titans of industry, accustomed to getting their way in the cutthroat world of business, applied those same tactics to the realm of politics, using their wealth to buy influence, secure favorable legislation, and undermine any attempts to regulate their growing power. The halls of Congress became a marketplace where votes were bought and sold, where lobbyists, armed with satchels full of cash and promises of campaign contributions, roamed freely, peddling their influence to the highest bidder. The spoils system, a practice where political appointments were treated as rewards for party loyalty, further eroded the integrity of government, creating a system rife with patronage and cronyism. Lobbying, a practice as old as government itself, took on new dimensions during the Gilded Age. Industrialists, flush with cash and determined to protect their interests, deployed armies of lobbyists to Washington, D.C., tasked with bending the ears of lawmakers and swaying public opinion. These lobbyists, masters of persuasion and purveyors of influence, became fixtures in the halls of Congress, their presence a constant reminder of the power of money to shape legislation. Graft, the insidious underbelly of political corruption, flourished in this environment. Bribes, kickbacks, and shady deals became commonplace, as politicians, seduced by the allure of easy money, lined their pockets at the expense of the public good. Laws were written or conveniently ignored to benefit the interests of the wealthy and well-connected, while the concerns of ordinary citizens were often ignored or dismissed. One of the most egregious examples of Gilded Age lobbying involved the railroad industry. Railroad barons, eager to secure land grants, subsidies, and favorable regulations, showered lawmakers with gifts, bribes, and campaign contributions. The Credit Mobilier scandal of the 1870s, which involved the Union Pacific Railroad bribing congressmen and even the vice president to secure lucrative government contracts, exposed the depths of corruption within the industry and sent shockwaves through the nation. The spoils system, rooted in Andrew Jackson's era, peaked during the Gilded Age, fueling corruption and cronyism. Political appointments were rewards for loyalty, often leading to unqualified individuals in power. President Garfield's assassination in 1881 highlighted its dangers, leading to the Pendleton Act. This act established a merit-based system, but the spoils system's legacy lingered. The Gilded Age was a time of rampant corruption, and scandals erupted with alarming regularity, exposing the rot within government and the corrosive influence of money on politics. Newspapers, fueled by a burgeoning muckraking tradition, played a key role in exposing these scandals, their pages filled with tales of graft, bribery, and abuse of power. One of the most notorious scandals of the era was the whiskey ring, which involved a conspiracy among government officials, distillers, and distributors to defraud the government of millions of dollars in tax revenue. The scandal, which reached the highest levels of the Grant administration, implicated the president's personal secretary and tarnished Grant's legacy. Another infamous scandal involved William Boss Tweed, the leader of Tammany Hall, the Democratic Party political machine that controlled New York City politics. Tweed and his cronies, known as the Tweed Ring, used their control of city government to siphon off millions of dollars through inflated contracts, kickbacks, and outright theft. The Tweed Ring's corruption was legendary, and its exposure by cartoonist Thomas Nast and the New York Times helped bring about Tweed's downfall and spark demands for reform. The corruption that permeated the Gilded Age left an enduring legacy on American society, eroding public trust in government and institutions. The image of politicians as corrupt and beholden to special interests took root in the public imagination, fueling cynicism and apathy towards politics. The Gilded Age taught Americans a harsh lesson about the dangers of unchecked power and the corrosive influence of money on democracy. It highlighted the need for transparency, accountability, and campaign finance reform to ensure that government serves the interests of the people, not just the wealthy and well-connected. The Gilded Age's legacy of distrust continues to resonate today, as we grapple with issues of income inequality, corporate influence on government, and the role of money in politics. The lessons of this era serve as a stark reminder that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, and that a healthy democracy requires the active participation of informed and engaged citizens. Yo, check it. We've been through the trenches of the Gilded Age, right? Seen the opulence, the poverty, the corruption. Now peep this. It's like looking in a dusty mirror because a lot of that Gilded Age grime, it's still clinging to us today. History's got this nasty habit of rhyming, and right now, the beat's bumping with a familiar tune. Yeah, we traded monocles for Teslas, top hats for baseball caps, but the core issues? They're spitting the same verses. Wealth inequality, still off the charts. Political corruption, deeper than a bass drop. We're talking about a system rigged to benefit the few at the expense of the many. A remix of the same old song and dance. Back then, it was robber barons calling the shots. Now, it's CEOs, corporations, the one-percenters. They're the new kings and queens of the castle, holding all the cards while the rest of us are stuck playing a losing hand. But hold up, don't hit that despair button just yet. There's a reason we're revisiting this history, right? We've got the chance to change the track, to flip the script, to make sure this gilded cage doesn't become our future too. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the one draped in designer threads and sipping champagne on a yacht: wealth inequality. Back in the Gilded Age, the gap between the rich and the poor was wider than the Grand Canyon. Guess what? It's even wider now. We're talking astronomical, mind-blowing levels of wealth concentrated in the hands of a tiny fraction of the population. Think about it. While families struggle to put food on the table, CEOs are raking in more money in an hour than most folks see in a year. We're talking about a system where the rules are rigged, where the deck is stacked against working people. Minimum wage can't even keep up with the price of ramen, while the 1% are buying islands and spaceships. This ain't just about numbers on a spreadsheet though. This is about people's lives. It's about families struggling to afford healthcare, education, a decent place to live. It's about the erosion of the middle class, the foundation of a strong society, and it's about the fundamental question of fairness. When a select few hoard so much wealth, it ain't just morally wrong, it's economically unsustainable. It's time to rewrite the rules, to create a system that works for everyone, not just those born with a platinum spoon. Remember those shadowy lobbyists whispering in politicians' ears back in the Gilded Age? Yeah, they're still around, but they've traded in their handlebar mustaches and pocket watches for power suits and Bluetooth headsets. The lobbying game has gone high-tech, but the goal remains the same: to influence policy, to rig the system in favor of those with the deepest pockets. We're talking about an army of lobbyists representing every industry imaginable, from big pharma to big oil, from Wall Street to Silicon Valley. They wine and dine lawmakers, shower them with campaign cash, and craft legislation that benefits their clients, often at the expense of the public good. Think about it. How many times have you seen a bill passed that benefits corporations while ignoring the needs of everyday people? How many times have regulations been weakened or eliminated, putting profits over people and the environment? This is the influence of money in politics, a toxic force that undermines democracy and erodes trust in government. It's time to shine a light on this shadowy world, to demand transparency and accountability, and to remind our elected officials that they work for us, not for the highest bidder. Let's drop some knowledge on a case that shook the foundations of our democracy: Citizens United. This 2010 Supreme Court decision basically gave corporations the same rights as individuals when it comes to political spending. They called it free speech, but let's be real. It opened the floodgates for a tsunami of corporate cash to flood our elections. Enter the super PACs, these political action committees that can raise unlimited amounts of money from corporations, unions, and wealthy donors. They're like the hype men of the political world, blasting out slick ads and attack pieces, drowning out the voices of ordinary citizens. This ain't just about Democrats or Republicans either. This is about a system where money equals power, where those with the deepest pockets can buy influence and drown out the voices of the people. It's about elections that feel more like auctions, where the highest bidder often wins. We need to overturn Citizens United, get big money out of politics, and return to a system where every vote, not every dollar, counts. Look, we've been through the mud, revisited the mistakes of the past. We've seen how the Gilded Age's legacy of inequality and corruption still haunts us today. But here's the good news. We ain't helpless bystanders in this story. We got the power to change the ending. This ain't about waiting for some savior, some politician to ride in on a white horse and fix everything. Nah, this is about us, the people, recognizing our own power, finding our voices, and demanding better. We need to get organized, mobilize our communities, and hold our elected officials accountable. Vote in every election, local and national. Support candidates who champion economic justice, campaign finance reform, and a government that works for everyone. Call your representatives, flood their inboxes, make your voices heard. Get involved in grassroots organizations fighting for social and economic justice. Educate yourself and others about the issues. This ain't about left or right, it's about right and wrong. It's about building a future where everyone has a fair shot, where wealth and power are shared, and where the Gilded Age remains a cautionary tale, not a blueprint for our future. The time for action is now. Let's make some noise. From gaslit streets to neon lights, history rhymes. Inequality, corruption, and justice echo through time. This isn't just history, it's a call to action. Greed and power still lurk, widening the wealth gap. But we have the power to rewrite the ending. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Let's make our voices heard. Peace out.